Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the 25th episode, right, of Daily Word Webs to Build a Cat. Earth, the only real estate we have. By the way, guys, the route that we will be sticking to in this episode is the same as the last one, ter and terra, because there are some other interesting words that we can discuss here with respect to this route. And as you would know, if you have watched the last episode, ter or terra stands for Earth, right? So let's begin. And as we discussed yesterday, these roots have their origin in the Latin language. They stand for earth, and there are the similar roots like geo, which have Greek origins, then which also stand for earth. Okay, so let's start with the words now. So H.G. Wells की एक किताब है The Time Machine. It's one of the classics. And by the way, if you want to take up a classic book ना, अगर आपको कोई classic किताब उठानी है, so this is like which is fiction, then this is one of the really good books to start off with because the plot is quite interesting. You know, he keeps you hooked and he उनकी और भी किताबें हैं The Invisible Man etc. बहुत सारी आई थिंक मार्शियंस के ऊपर भी उन्होंने किताबें लिखी थी बट द टाइम मशीन इज लाइक वन ऑफ द वेरी वेल नोन क्लासिक्स एंड वन रीजन यू नो एक अगर इसका एक बहुत ही अच्छा रीजन है ये इस किताब को उठाने का एटलीस्ट फर्स्ट चैप्टर तो आप डेफिनेटली उठाइएगा in the first chapter itself the amount of vocabulary that you'll get to learn you know in this book the टाइम मशीन इसमें जितनी वोकैबुलरी आपको देखने को मिलेगी लाइक you'll be kind of astounded to know कि वो like in just 2 pages you can learn so much of vocabulary and that's not because this author is verbose or anything ऐसा नहीं है कि वो जानबूझ के जबरदस्ती vocabulary डाल रहे हैं but rather because like his use of language and words is quite sophisticated at least that's what I found so in fact आने वाले कुछ sessions में I'm thinking of starting a series maybe शायद short stories या ऐसा कुछ करके हम लोग शुरू करेंगे तो I'll definitely take up an excerpt from that book ठीक है हम लोग उसको उठाएंगे so the time machine by H.G. Wells is something that you can consider anyhow H.G. Wells और टाइम मशीन की बात यहाँ पे कैसे आई the first word subterranean is the word that reminded me of this book because I think I had heard this book via an audio मैंने इसको audio book की तरह ये content consume किया था and I still recall like in this plot ना इसका जो मैं spoilers नहीं बताऊंगा ज़्यादा आपको but the broad plot of this book is that when H.G. when the protagonist when he happens to travel thousands of years hundreds of thousands of years into the future and he finds that you know men have not evolved but rather devolved okay by the way another term right have devolved into two types of creatures दो तरह के creatures में ये लोग devolve हो चुके हैं the second type of the first type of creature is called an Eloi. Eloi are basically creatures which are like very weak and they are kind of very soft spoken and beautiful and kind of cute etc. But they're also weak. And the second kind of creatures would be I think the term he has used is Morlocks. And these are like just the opposite of Eloi. ये इसके एकदम opposite है Morlock से. I have a creative here to share with you. देखो. So in this creative, what you see here, this guy, ये जो आपको like this person that you see here is the protagonist, is the time traveler. This person you see here, this female you see here is probably the Eloi. Okay, it's probably the Eloi. And these other creatures that you see here, these are Morlocks. अच्छा, अब इसका subterranean से क्या relation है? Subterranean से इसका relation ये है कि well the Morlocks so in the future what he finds it what he figures is that Elois are basically creatures that live on the surface of the earth right जो ground पे रहते हैं जो terra firma पे रहते हैं by the way dry and solid ground and in the sunlight and the way people live these days right and on the other hand the Morlocks right which are almost like these ghostly creatures you know almost they're quite heinous as you can see them they are almost they're portrayed as antagonists and villains right these are creatures that live in the underground right hence the word subterranean right because sub comes from the root the first part comes from the root sub stands for under right under or below under or below right so and terranean comes from terra which means earth that means these creatures are subterranean creatures okay so yeah, so that's about that. So subterranean is basically a term that can be used for anything that exists or occurs under the surface of Earth, right? Subterranean, like for example, you might have a Batman has a subterranean cave, right? Where he keeps all his like, you know, Batman stuff basically. So that's subterranean for you. Anyhow, so आगे चलते हैं. Then the next what we have here is Mediterranean. Have you heard of this? Mediterranean हमने geography में ये पढ़ा होगा. Let me write this down here. So Mediterranean, right? Now, Mediterranean is generally a term used for the Mediterranean Sea, in fact, right? And Mediterranean comes from two parts. First part आपका ये MEDI है, which comes from the root MEDIUS, which stands for middle, okay, in Latin. And the second part, Terranean, obviously comes from terra. That means like something. So the Mediterranean Sea is basically a sea that is surrounded, that is in the middle of land, that is surrounded on all sides, almost, in fact, पूरी तरह surrounded नहीं है वो, but almost on all sides by land, right? The sea that is surrounded almost on all sides by land is the Mediterranean Sea. So we also have the map here, देखो यहाँ पे. So this is your Mediterranean Sea. On the north side you can see Europe and Spain, Portugal, ये सारी चीजें आपके यहाँ पे आ जा रही हैं. And you have this African continent somewhere here, right? So you can see this Mediterranean Sea, how it is surrounded almost on all sides by land, and hence the term Mediterranean, by the way. ठीक है, चलो आगे चलते हैं. Let's move on to the next term, which is terra firma. Terra firma क्या है? Terra firma, now terra obviously comes from earth, stands for earth, and firma stands for like firma as in the term firm, like being on firm ground, right? So that means terra firma is basically nothing but dry and solid ground as opposed to oceans and the air. For example, you can see that the astronauts had been living on the International Space Station. By the way, you know of the International Space Station, right? I hope. So we do have an International Space Station. Obviously, आपको पता होगा. Just kidding. So if you don't, just Google it up. You'll find some interesting information on that. So the astronauts had been living on the International Space Station for so long and had gotten so used to the absence of gravity that once they got their feet back on terra firma, they were quite delighted to get back to normal, right? So once they got their feet back on firm ground, they were quite delighted to to be back on the ground, so to get back to normal here. So that's terra firma for you. Similarly, एक और term होता है. There is something called terracotta. Have you heard of terracotta? Terracotta, COTTA. इसमें obviously the first part comes from terra or terra, which means earth. Cotta comes from a root which stands for which is COCTA, cocta, which stands for baked, something that has been baked, right? So you have these baking kilns for bricks, right? Bricks आपकी जो ईंटें बनाई जाती हैं, उनको baking kilns में bake करके बनाया जाता है, right? So but terracotta आपका कहाँ पे use होगा? Terracotta is basically literally it means earth or sand or not sand, sorry, soil or mud that has been baked, right? So you must have ये बचपन में हम लोग वो जो सीनरी बनाई जाती थी, I think almost all over the country वो एक ही सीन बनाया जाता था कि पहाड़ होते थे. There used to be these mountains in the distance, and then there would be a river coming here, and then there'd be यहाँ पे एक तो कोई जगह कोई पेड़ बनाएगा, and then in one place there'll be a hut or something, right? On the top of this hut, generally this will be this triangular hut, like which will be a roof, right? इसका जो roof होगा, ऐसे huts के roof पे आपने देखा होगा बहुत बार वो जो you have those red colored plate like structures, right? वो एक के ऊपर एक रखे रहते हैं, right? They are usually terracotta tiles. They're often terracotta tiles. That means they are tiles that have been made from baked earth, right? That have been made from baked earth. Please excuse my drawing and everything. So that's terracotta. It's kind of a fired clay, actually clay. आप उसको mud नहीं बोलेंगे, clay बोलेंगे. A fired clay, baked clay, which is generally brownish red in color, and काफी बार ये आपका ornamental building material में भी use होता है, कुछ statues और वो सब बनाने में भी use होता है, terracotta. Okay, next term that we have is territorial. Okay, so what do we mean that like when you're watching these channels like Animal Planet or maybe National Geography देख रहे हैं, या फिर हम लोग देख रहे हैं, we are watching let's say Discovery or something, and then usually these channels have a lot of content with respect to the flora and fauna, right? That means plants and animals of various regions, and jungles में बहुत सारी चीजें दिखाते हैं, right? When they say, let's say, Devin Attenborough, right? He's giving you he's narrating the whole documentary to you, and he says that, कि हाँ, so these animals are quite territorial in nature. What does that mean? उसका मतलब क्या हुआ? Territorial है, उसका मतलब ये है that they are kind of very defensive about their area. उनको लगता है कि नहीं, ये मेरा इलाका है. This is my area. If anyone else comes into this area, I'm gonna fight them off. Okay, I'm gonna send them away. So that's the case of being, or the condition of being a little, having some territorial instincts. So if someone has territorial instincts, these are the kind of instincts that they have. In fact, it wouldn't be absolutely incorrect to say that humans are territorial in nature, right? So we like अब आप देखिए, अगर humans territorial नहीं होते तो हमारे पास सिर्फ geography में सिर्फ physical maps होते, political maps नहीं होते, है ना? So and then we all have, हमने अपनी जगह बना के रखी होती हैं, and in fact notice this, even in childhood, since childhood we have had this tendency, whenever you are playing, आप बहुत बार वो एक किला बना के खेलते हैं, है ना? You make this by using this, ये घर से चद्दर उठा ली पता नहीं कहीं से, and then a chair and something, and then you make a kind of a tent or kind of a fort, right? So yeah, so that's kind of those are kind of some I would say that some indications of maybe some residual territorial instincts that we have had. So that's territorial for us. So that's one meaning. Another meaning is like relating to an area, right? So territorial disputes between countries, right? That means disputes with respect to territory, with respect to land. Terra stands for earth, right? So काफी देशों के बीच में चलता है. So that's territorial for you. Let's go on to the next one, which is terrace. Okay, terrace क्या होता है यार? So you must have noticed if you've gone on a trek, or maybe if you've ever been to the mountains, people do like carry out farming in mountains as well, right? ऐसा तो है नहीं कि farming बाकी कहीं पे होता ही नहीं. In fact, आप हिमाचल जाएंगे तो वहाँ पे आपको you'll find some beautiful apple orchards there, and although apple orchards में terrace farming use नहीं होता है, but still like the point is that people do farm in hilly areas, and then when they do farm on the hilly areas, अब मेरा drawing इतना अच्छा है नहीं. Now this hill would have some sort of gradient, right? तो ऐसे gradient पे farming करना काफी मुश्किल हो जाएगा. So what they do is they kind of create terraces, like something on these lines, almost like terraces, such that like flat land, basically pieces of flat land, stepped terraces, where they can then carry on their farming, जहाँ पे उसके बाद वो farming कर सकते हैं, right? So that is, by the way, that is one of the contexts in which the word terrace can be used. Terrace does not just exclusively stand for this. सिर्फ exclusively इसका मतलब ये नहीं होता. Terrace farming का मतलब ये होता है जो मैंने आपको यहाँ बताया. Terrace is basically any paved area, or यहाँ पे ये जो मैंने आपको बताया ये cultivating areas वाला meaning है. So any paved area which is flat in nature, where you can go roam around probably, would be a terrace. How would a roof be different from a terrace? Well, roof जो हमने यहाँ पे देखा, ये जो मैंने बहुत ही weird सा हट का डायग्राम बनाया हुआ है यहाँ पे, a roof will not always necessarily be a terrace. A roof is basically something that just covers the top. Okay, a terrace, on the other hand, would be something that covers the top, at the same time also kind of serves as a flat surface, as a flat surface on which you can probably go and I don't know, hang out, or जैसे गर्मियों में सोने जाते हैं वैसे, right? So it also serves as a flat surface. So that's again a usage of the word terrace, right? So yeah, that's how a terrace would be different from roof. और कोई words हैं? Territory is an obvious word that you can take from here. Territory from territorial, right? So territory is like your area, your particular area. That will be territory for you. Okay, I think that's about it. Okay, let's move on to the sentences now. At this point, guys, you can pause the video and go through the sentence usages of these words, by going through these sentences that have been listed here. And as you can see, these have been sourced from some reliable sources. The credits have been mentioned here. Okay, so you can do that. Here you can again pause the video and test yourself. You just need to find the correct order of sentences which have been shuffled, so that the right sentence, is along with the right word. The words are fixed on the left side. You can also attempt this test via a Google form, the link to which has been provided in the description. So guys, here's the summary of the roots and words that we studied on a primary and secondary basis. What you can do is you can pause the video if you want and try to recall the meaning of these roots and the words that we discussed in the session today. So guys, so far as my profile and credentials are concerned, मैंने उसके लिए अलग से एक वीडियो यहाँ पे बना दिया है जिससे कि हर बार 2-3 मिनट इसमें ज़ाया ना करने पड़े. फिर भी अगर आपको शॉर्ट में रीड करना है तो यहाँ पॉज करके you can read all of this content about me. But if you go to the video, you'll also get to see the reviews of the courses that I've conducted on other platforms in the past, right? So go on and check that out if you want. So that's about that, and यहाँ पे this link will take you to the next video, and this should take you to the very first video of the series if you're new to the session. Okay, so that's about it. See you in the next one.